Hello, everybody! Why do I sound like your daily dose of internet? Oh my gosh, I need to stop watching those. Today, I am starting a new drawing series on my channel called Based on the Book. As all book lovers know, sometimes when a book is adapted to film, a character's appearance can change. In this series, I will be drawing fictional characters how they're originally portrayed in the books. Today's topic is The Vampire Diaries, which is one of my all-time favorite TV series. Not only for its spicy paranormal romance, but because of how it's dripping in early 2000s nostalgia. You may be surprised to know that The Vampire Diaries was actually a book before it was ever a TV series. The first set of books came out around 1991. That is 18 years before the show aired in 2009. While The Vampire Diaries was a book way before it was ever a show, the adaptation is actually very loose. A bunch of characters were completely changed, removed, and even added. For example, Jeremy, Elena's younger brother, was a completely added character. In the books, she has a younger 4-year-old sister. In this specific episode of Based on the Book, we are going to be drawing Elena Gilbert, the main character, the protagonist, the girl. And let me tell you guys, her book description is nearly the complete opposite of how she was casted in the show. In the TV series, Elena Gilbert has long, dark brown hair that is often seen straightened. She has a set of matching deep brown eyes that are sometimes referred to as doe eyes. Her skin tone is of olive complexion and almost a little tan in nature. She shares a near identical appearance with her ancestral doppelganger, Catherine. Overall, in the early seasons, Elena very much feels like the girl next door, and at times can be somewhat damselly. She is not only very beautiful, but Elena also has a very kind and compassionate heart. That is why you will be surprised to find out that in the books, Elena's personality is more mean and sour. But more on that later. On to Elena's book appearance. I hope you guys are ready because we're about to do a full 180 from the Elena Gilbert you've grown to know over the past decade. Here's an excerpt from Book 1, The Awakening. This is Stefan's reaction when he spots Elena for the first time. This is on page 13. My apologies if I sound a little awkward. I was never like a very good reader out loud, but I'm gonna just go for it. So upon seeing Elena, he says, "Catherine." But of course it couldn't be. Catherine was dead. No one knew that better than he did. Still, the resemblance was uncanny. That pale golden hair, so fair it almost seemed to shimmer. That creamy skin, which had always made him think of swans or alabaster, flushing faintly pink over the cheekbones. And the eyes, Catherine's eyes, had been a color he had never seen before. Darker than sky blue, as rich as the lapis lazuli in her jeweled headband. This girl had those same eyes. This description already paints an Elena and Catherine that we're not very familiar with in the show. Elena Gilbert in the books has very blonde hair, as well as long golden lashes. Her skin is pale and nearly translucent. In fact, Elena's skin is so pale that it has trouble tanning, as stated in an excerpt on page 8. In this excerpt, one of her best friends, Meredith, whose character never appeared in the show, is talking to Elena after not seeing her for a while. "Well, your hair is 2 shades lighter from the sun. But where's your tan? I thought you were living it up on the French Riviera." "You know I never tan." Elena held up her hands for her own inspection. The skin was flawless, like porcelain, but almost as fair and translucent as Bonnie's. Yeah, you heard that right. Even Bonnie's description from the book is entirely different from how she was casted in the TV series. But back onto Elena. Elena's hair was also said to be very long, but according to the Vampire Diaries fandom page, Catherine's hair was even longer than Elena's, to the extent that it would pull on the floor and trail behind her. I'm like immediately picturing Rapunzel. Moving on to Elena's eyes. As the previous excerpt mentioned, her eyes were said to be darker than sky blue and as rich as lapis lazuli. Coincidentally enough, that is the same jewel in Stefan's daylight ring, and Elena's eyes match that perfectly. When it comes to Elena's personality in the books, she has a little bit of Georgina vibes from Mean Girls.
The queen bee, the star, those other were just her little workers.
Regina George is flawless.
It is no secret to anyone in Fells Church, the original town name of Mystic Falls, that Elena is one of the most angelic and beautiful girls there. She's the most popular girl at her high school, and in the beginning of the book series, she is said to be very vain, shallow, selfish, and ultimately narcissistic. She is very self-absorbed and has the habit of obsessing over boys, status, and beauty. Here are some excerpts I found from the first book showcasing Elena's ability to be rather shallow. This scene on page 15 is Elena as she is watching Stefan. Elena watched him as he went. He deliberately turned away from her. He'd snubbed her on purpose and in front of Caroline, who had been watching like a hawk. Tears burned in Elena's eyes, but at that moment, only one thought burned in her mind. She'd have him, even if it killed her. If it killed the both of them, she'd have him. So like, my red flags are popping up because girl literally just saw Stefan for like the first time, and she like wants him so bad that she will risk her life and his life to get with him. I mean, when you see a cute boy like walking down the street or whatever, your first thought is not, oh my god, I'm gonna get him even if it kills me. Like, what? Don't you start with like something a little less crazy? I don't know. A girl's crazy, okay? I had listened to the audiobook once a couple years ago, and it kind of drained from my brain. I don't really remember much, but I didn't want to have to like, read through a bunch of chapters. So I read like the first 2, 3, 4 chapters, and this was all just in the beginning. Like every other page is Elena kind of being a little snarky or being a little impatient or thinking crazy obsessive thoughts about a boy she just saw down the hallway. So here's one on page 7. Elena was surrounded the instant she stepped into the high school parking lot. Everyone was there, the whole crowd she hadn't seen since late June. Plus 4 or 5 hangers-on. Hangers-on. Bro, I feel like that is not a word, but I don't know. Hangers-on who hope to gain popularity by association. So this is basically Elena acknowledging that she's really popular, and while there's a whole crowd coming around her, she's taking notice to a couple random kids who are hoping to be seen as popular because they're standing near her. Like, that is some level of popularity going on there that I have never seen. But anyway, on to the last description. This is probably one of the more obvious descriptions where Elena is sounding very vain and really self-absorbed, caring little about the emotions of others, most specifically the boys that like her. This is on page 11, and she's talking about Stefan, who is walking past her without looking at her. He'd walked right by, without a glance. She couldn't remember how long it had been since a boy had done that. They all looked, at least. Some whistled, some stopped to talk, some just stared. And that had always been fine with Elena. After all, what was more important than boys? They were the mark of how popular you were, how beautiful you were. And they could be useful for all sorts of things. Sometimes they were exciting, but usually that didn't last long. Sometimes they were creeps from the beginning. Most boys, Elena reflected, were like puppies. Adorable in their place, but expendable. A very few could be more than that, could become real friends, like Matt. Oh, Matt. Last year, she'd hoped that he was the one she was looking for. The boy who could make her feel, well, something more. More than the rush of triumph at making a conquest. The pride in showing your new acquisition off to the other girls. And she had come to feel a strong affection for Matt. But over the summer, when she had time to think, she'd realized it was the affection of a cousin or sister. So my initial reaction is that, she is in high school, she's a teenager. All teenagers are kind of hormonal, so it's not surprising that she's kind of boy crazy, and that's not a problem at all, But there's some wording that's going on here where she is saying, making a conquest and showing off your new acquisition. It's kind of shallow to be thinking of a boy as an object, kind of. But she is looking for real love. But for the most part, boys are just about popularity and looking cool and having the best one. Which kind of does a roundabout back to Stefan and how the second she saw him, she's like, man, I need this guy. Because everyone thinks he's the hottest and she wants him because of that. And I wouldn't necessarily say that Elena's character is poorly written or anything like that. I think it's very deliberate, and that if Elena starts like this, there's some really great character development to be had. Anyway, we are nearing the end of the video, but to sum everything up, Elena Gilbert in the books is just about as opposite as you can get from the Elena Gilbert in the show. In the series, she has brown hair, brown eyes, and olive skin. In the books, she has pale blonde hair and porcelain-like skin. While in the TV show, Elena is popular and confident, she is also very kind and generous. In the books, though, she has the ability to be nice to those she's close with, but has a lot of thoughts and traits that make her a little bit sour. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the book Elena versus the TV show Elena. Did you know any of these differences, or were you totally shocked? I would love to do another based on the book episode, perhaps with Bonnie and how different she is. Thank you guys for sticking around this long. The Vampire Diaries is one of my favorite TV shows, and I really enjoyed researching the source material that it came from. I hope you guys have a good morning, afternoon, or night, wherever you may be. And I'll see you next time. Peace.